I can't believe I didn't know. Hello?
Yeah, we're here.
I can't believe I didn't know about the Bob Barrett testifying to that, but that still doesn't. But that doesn't mean you're right and I'm wrong. What that means is we have a split.
Yeah,
because we have
that's okay. That's we've already talked about all that. Let's get to the next one. Which Chris,
I'm saying it makes me look bad.
Oh well, Chris, you're gonna basically say, okay, the next topic is the mix and match of the brands of bullets to shells or whatever.
All right. And Bill Brown, the next topic goes to you, the mixed match of bullets and shells.
All right, well, two different brands were involved. Two different brands of bullets were involved, the Winchester Westerns and Remington Peters. All four shells and all four bullets were .38 specials. When Oswald was arrested, he had 6 live rounds in the revolver. 3 of them were Winchester Westerns and 3 of them were Remington Peters. And then he also had 5 Winchester Westerns taken from his left front pants pocket at police headquarters. The bullets removed from Tippett's body. There were 3 Winchester Westerns and 1 Remington Peters.
That's not right. That's what the police are fucking there for, is to protect us.
Hello?
I'm here.
We can hear that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Let me start. Video or something, or what are we doing?
All right, let's start this over.
No,
I can hear this.
No, you don't. No, you don't have to start over.
No, just start it over. It's easier. Just start it over. I only been talking for 45 seconds, but Chris, we can hear you when you're talking.
I'm sorry. I thought I had it up, muted down. All right, the next topic goes to Bill Brown, and it'll be the mix and match of the shells.
Well, basically in the shooting of Tippit, there were 2 different brands of bullets involved, Winchester Westerns and Remington Peters. All 4 shells and all 4 bullets were .38 specials. 3 of each brand, so 3 Winchester Westerns and 3 Remington Peters were loaded with the live rounds loaded into the revolver, and the revolver that was taken from Oswald when he was arrested. And he also had 5 Winchester Westerns live rounds in his left front pants pocket. Of the bullets removed from Tippett's body, 3 of them were Winchester Westerns, and 1 of them was a Remington Peters. However, the shells found at the scene was 2 Winchester Westerns and 2 Remington Peters. So a lot of conspiracy advocates will like to argue that the mix and match is evidence of 2 shooters because they don't line up right. Well, Ted Calloway stated that he heard 5 shots. It could be that Oswald fired off 5 shots, not 4, but 1 bullet missed, and that bullet was never found, and also one of the shells was never found or is missing. And if the missing bullet is a Remington Peters and the missing shell is a Winchester Western, then that explains the discrepancy. You would then have 3 Winchester Western bullets, 3 Winchester Western shells, and 2 Remington Peters bullets with 2 Remington Peters shells. Oswald had both brands on him when he was arrested. In other words, when Oswald was arrested, the ammunition taken from his revolver were the same 2 brands as the ammunition used in the murder of J.D. Tippit, Winchesters and Remingtons. And also, Ted Calloway told Dale Myers, basically, when he heard the shots, he kind of associated with Morse code, kind of like a bam, 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 or like a dot, 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 tat, tat. So Ted Calloway told Dale Myers he was certain that he heard 5 shots. And if true, then you could have a missing bullet and a missing shell, which would explain the discrepancy. Bottom line is, the bottom line is of the bullets removed from Tippett's body, 3 were Winchester Westerns, 1 was a Remington Peters, but of the shells found at the scene, it was 2 and 2. So I'm trying to explain why there could be a discrepancy.
All right. So you say it's again, we talked about this last time, but anyway, you said that there are, it's a big coincidence that Oswald also had in his pants pocket, in his revolver, those 2 types of brands of ammunition. But
well, I didn't say it was a big coincidence just now. That's not what I said. I just said that he had the same 2 brands in his revolver.
Well, you imply that it's a coincidence. And
Well, you're going to argue that Winchester Westerns and Remington Peters are basically the two most popular brands, but there were definitely other manufacturers of bullets and ammunition back in 1963.
Darn right.
A simple Google search will tell you that.
Again, those are like the most common brands, so no, it's not a coincidence. Oh, the same ammunition was found at the crime scene. No. So anyway, you mentioned Calloway saying in 1996 that he definitely heard 5 shots. You oddly give that more credence than his original accounts, where he said he originally said, "I heard some shots," and
I'm aware that he didn't say 5 shots early on. I'm simply saying all I said was that he told Dale Myers that he heard 5 shots, that he was certain it was 5 shots. I didn't say that I didn't say that he never said that it was a different number. I acknowledge that Calloway in his testimony talks about a certain number of shots. Never, he didn't necessarily say 5. I'm not sure what your point is.
Are you done?
Go ahead.
Okay. So, like I said, you oddly give more credence to him in 1996, saying there's
definitely. I'm not giving more credence to that. I'm not giving more credence to it.
Oh, okay.
I'm just telling you what he told Dale Myers. For what it's worth, he told Dale Myers that he was certain there were 5 shots.
Okay, well, for what it's worth, what did he originally say? I heard some shots. What about later? About 5 shots. So anyway.
And I said, if Calloway is correct, then I did an if then. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, sure. If. Got it. What else did you mention? You talked about the you talked about how one shot could miss, right?
I'm just saying, if a Remington Peters bullet is missing and a Winchester Western shell is missing, then that explains the mismatch. Simple as that.
So you believe that a shot missed, is that right?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so for that to happen, it would have to go into a house right across the street, and the person in that house ran out, and he never said anything about, "You're not going to believe what happened. This bullet crashed into my house." He never said anything like that.
Do you think I didn't say it's got to go through a window and crashing through his kitchen or something?
No, I didn't say window. I said the house.
But you're making it sound that way. It could have embedded itself into the side of the house for all we know. Who knows?
He would have heard it.
It also that's not true at all.
Yes, he would have heard it.
You don't necessarily hear a bullet hitting your house. You don't.
Yes,
no, you don't.
Yeah, you can. You're right inside. It's a wooden.
You hear the gunshot. You hear the gunshot, but you don't necessarily hear the impact of the bullet with the side of a house.
Sure, you can. Sure, you can.
Yes, but that's not what you said.
Are you? Okay. So again, he ran out. And he never said anything about a bullet crashing into his house. So that's
who's he?
That was Frank Cimino. He lived right across the street, right?
But Cimino did live right across the street. But I'm not saying the bullet bet itself in Cimino's house. That's not what I said.
Okay, so whose house do you think?
I don't know. Hell, it could have. Oswald could have fired higher. Who the hell knows? It could have been hit. It could have been vetted. It could have flew over the houses and end up in downtown Dallas and the Trinity River for all we know.
Okay, that's it.
I'm just saying. I know it's funny, but it could have. Hell, who knows? Who knows where the bullet is? But a missing bullet and a missing shell perfectly addresses the issue, which in my opinion is a non-issue, but conspiracy advocates like to bring it up, so I wanted to mention it.
Okay, so again, like I said, Frank Cimino never said anything about a bullet crashing into his house. He definitely would have heard it. Anyway, if it was Frank Cimino's house. I can finish. If it was, let's say it wasn't Frank Cimino. Let's go to the house right next to it. That it could have also hypothetically crashed into. Who was living there was the Houses, Mrs. Myrtle House and her son Donald House. I'm sorry, Ed House. I'm forgetting one of them. He was interviewed by Joseph McBride in the early 90s, and he never said anything about, "You're not going to believe what happened. This bullet crashed into my house." So we have 2 people from those 2 houses where your magical bullet would have hit, and they never said anything about a bullet crashing into their house.
They don't have to know that a bullet would have struck their house. They don't have to. It's not automatic that you know that.
I live on a golf course, and I've had golf balls hit my house, and you hear it. It's loud. Now, a bullet, forget it, man. Forget it.
You want to compare a golf ball hitting a house to a bullet. It's different.
It's loud. It's loud. Bang. Same thing here. It would have. Same thing here. Bang.
Matt, it's not the same thing. A bullet and a golf ball are two different things.
They would have heard it.
And besides that, I'm not even making a case for any particular witness, never mentioning the fact that
Your theory is insane. Okay.
my theory is not insane at all.
Yes, it is.
The evidence supports my theory.
No, it doesn't.
It's not my theory anyway, but the evidence supports the theory.
Plus, all the witnesses said they heard. Most of the witnesses said they heard no more than 4 shots.
Barbara Davis and Virginia Davis each said they heard 2 shots. So what?
Yeah.
So what?
They could be talking about 2 bursts of gunfire, but anyway. But yeah, Callaway is the only one who said there were 5 shots. The only one.
And I also consider Callaway to be the best witness.
Well.
He
did not. He did not see the shooting. But anyway.
I never said he saw the shooting. He's the best witness, though.
Okay.
He's the best witness to the events at 10th and Patton on November 22nd, 1963.
Again, you trust him, but you don't trust the 5 witnesses on 10th Street who watched it go down, who could not identify Oswald. But anyway, it's a free country. You can believe what you want. Was there anything else you mentioned in your argument, or no? Anything else you mentioned? I mentioned Callaway 5 shots, missed shots.
No, I'm basically just saying the bullets removed from Tippett's body. 3 of them were Winchester Westerns. 1 was Remington Peters.
Yeah, we
and the
talked
shells
about
found at the
that.
scene were 2 and 2. That's my whole point. So if there was a missed shot and the bullet was never recovered, which was a Remington Peters bullet, and if the shell that was never found was a Winchester Western shell, then that perfectly explains the discrepancy on the mix and match. And really, then there would be no mix and match.
Again, we just have too many paradoxes in this case.
Well, that's going to happen. I bet that happens in a lot of murder cases, but none of them get dissected like these.
Not as much as this case. Let's say, okay, so you say 4 bullets. Too many bullets. There's too many bullets. I mean, and too many shells. This is incredible. Just like in Plaza.
What do you mean too many? You lost me.
Let's see. 4 bullets hit Officer Tippit. You say 1 bullet supposedly missed. 1 bullet was kicked out of the ambulance and onto the hospital parking lot by ambulance attendant Eddie Kinsley, but that's another rabbit hole. Anyway, 2 shells were found in a bush by Donnie Benavides, as we said. Like we said, 1 automatic shell was observed at the scene by Sergeant Hill. 2 more shells were found later that day by the Davis sisters. Let me finish. On the side of their house, and then 1 shell you say is supposedly missing. Witnesses Russell and Patterson saw the gunman discard shells, plural, on Jefferson Boulevard.
They were across the street, 75 to 100 feet away.
And the Davis sisters' father-in-law kept 1 shell as a souvenir. So where the hell does this come from? We have too many bullets and too many shells. Hey, that's JFK for you guys.
Yeah, but
that's JFK for you. It's insane.
As far as the guys at the Johnny Reynolds Motor Company,
it's insane.
Oswald could have thrown away 1 shell down at that corner of Jefferson Boulevard.
They said shells.
That would be they would have no way of knowing if he threw down 1 or 2. How could they possibly know that they were 100 feet away?
Shells. This is their FBI statements.
And they're also in their FBI statements. They said that the man they saw was Oswald.
No, they were shown. Nice try, but like I said, they were shown his photo months after he was nationally known. We talked about that in round 1.
Did they or did they not positively identify a photo of Oswald as the man they saw?
We talked about that last time. I told you. They showed his photo many months after.
You're not answering my question.
I'm just told you.
You're flat out not answering the question.
Okay, no. Okay.
Next.
Go on.
No, Harold Russell was shown a photo of Lee Oswald. Did Harold Russell pick that man in the photo as the man he saw running down path with a gun in his hand?
Like I said last time in round 1, that's like showing someone Osama bin Laden. Is this the guy, 9/11? Well, yeah, of course, because he's all over the news and TV. So those
you just don't want to answer the question.
No, I am answering the question.
No, you're not. No, you're not. You absolutely are not answering the question at all.
Worthless.
No, you're not. Zero answers. All questions, 0 answers.
Nope. Again, they were shown his photo months after he was nationally known. That's
and did they say it was Oswald or not? I'm just asking that one simple question.
That's what we. That's the claim. That's the claim.
So according to the FBI report, did Harold Russell, for example, say the man was Oswald?
Okay, we are going way off topic. We're talking about the bullets, okay? Actually, I think we're finished on your topic.
Yeah, we're done. I made my point.
Oh, okay.
There's a missing Remington Peters bullet and there's a missing Winchester Western shell. That's
Like, and like I said, I listed all these other stuff, and it's just incredible. It's just all the paradoxes we have. It's maddening. Next topic. That's JFK for you. Next topic.
So, jealous husband, I think, is one of your topics.
Yeah, this is
The next topic.
Yeah,
Okay,
this,
go ahead.
Yeah, this is a muddy story too. Okay, so for many years it was there were stories about how Officer Tippit, and I apologize, but this is part of the case, that Officer Tippit was having a sexual relationship with a waitress at Austin's Barbecue, where he worked part-time on the weekends. And this was finally confirmed in the 1970s when the House Select Committee on Assassinations, the HSCA, they interviewed her. And yeah, she confirmed that they were having an affair. And it says, quote, HSCA Volume 12, page 37, quote, she, quote, informed the committee that she and Tippit engaged in a relationship and started dating for a couple of years. She said that the relationship ended in the summer of 1963 when her husband returned home, end quote. Now, author Henry Hurt, he interviewed her, the waitress, and he writes in his book, Reasonable Doubt, quote, in a series of interviews in 1983 with the author, the woman readily conceded her illicit sexual relationship with Tippit. But what Hurt revealed next was shocking. Quote, her estranged husband followed Tippit and the woman around Oak Cliff at night when they were together. Also, quote, the woman, her husband, and their several children lived in Oak Cliff within a few minutes' drive of Tippit's strange activities just before he was murdered. So, Tippit, he wanted to marry this woman. She declined his marriage. She said no. The relationship ended. She realized that she was pregnant later, and it's just a sticky situation. This bizarre love triangle between Tippit, the waitress, and her jealous husband. She told the HSCA that after she and Tippit broke up, hold on a second, my mistake. So yeah, this is just a story that's there, and it seems a little too good to be true. But do you want to take it from here, Bill? I have some more stuff I can say about it, but
well, no, go ahead.
No, go on.
No, this is your topic. I don't really have a lot to say about this, but I can interject a few things at the end. But
yeah, Larry Harris and Ken Holmes Jr. They interviewed the husband of the former husband, the jealous husband, and they approached him at the restaurant where he was working or managed in the late 1970s, and they were nervous and going in and approaching this guy who they felt killed Tippit. And they introduced themselves, and he was like, so you think I killed him, right? And they're like, well, did you? And he's like, okay, sit down. Let's talk. And so he just enthralled them. They sat down, and like for 3 hours or so, he just enthralled them with this bizarre love triangle that was between him, his wife at the time, the woman, and Officer Tippit. And yeah, he was a jealous husband. He was following them around that night. And that's led to the theory that possibly Tippit murder, which most likely had nothing to do with the assassination, and that maybe this jealous husband had killed Tippit. And that would possibly explain Tippit's strange behavior that day, which we'll get into in the next topic. Is there anything you want to respond to now?
I kind of want to just basically, so Helen Markham, William Scoggins, Barbara Davis, Virginia Davis, Sam Ginyard, and Ted Calloway. Now, these 6 people went to a lineup and picked Oswald. So are you telling me that it's possible? Or are you just basically putting forth a theory of the possibility that this jealous husband resembled Oswald so much that these 6 witnesses that I just mentioned are going to pick Oswald out of the lineup as the man they saw shoot the officer, who also just happened to be the same guy who, half an hour or 45 minutes earlier is accused of assassinating the president. So did this jealous husband resemble Oswald? Or I guess I want you to address the witnesses who picked Oswald in the lineup if you think it's possible it's a jealous husband.
Yeah, no, we're talking about the jealous husband. Yeah, I'm very glad you asked that. Yes, he did resemble Oswald.
Okay. I've never heard that before, but that's fine. Okay. Where'd you get that from?
Again, you haven't read Joseph McBride's book Into the Nightmare. So,
I have not.
Okay, you should. Anyway.
No, I should. No, I should. No, I shouldn't.
He also interviewed the woman, and she said, yeah, my ex-husband looked exactly, and he was the same height, same everything. He looked, same build, looked exactly like Oswald.
Yeah, okay.
So
much so that it made William Scoggins pick Oswald in the lineup, even though really it was the waitress's husband.
Scoggins picked the wrong photo in the photo lineup, and he
at the physical lineup, Scoggins picked Oswald. So this jealous husband resembled Oswald so much that Scoggins or Markham or Barbara Davis, Virginia Davis.
If you actually read the testimony of Daniel Lujan, who was in the Saturday lineup, he actually said, shockingly, that there was no lineup because they brought them up on the stage and Oswald started yelling angrily and screaming, I'm not dressed right with these people. I'm being railroaded. And he said that there wasn't a lineup, that he started yelling and they took them away. So there was no Saturday night. There was no Saturday lineup. That was shocking for me to hear. So anyway,
William Scoggins says, well, he can, according to Jim Lavelle, who told Dale Myers, William Scoggins said, well, he can bitch and holler all he wants, but that's the man I saw running from the scene.
Yeah, so that's according to what an author wrote in 1998 about what he was supposedly told in 1996, about what that person was supposedly told 33 years earlier in 1963. No.
Right. Correct.
And we talked about this last time. Original evidence shows that Scoggins could not ID Oswald. 2 instances. But anyway,
Original evidence has Scoggins positively identifying Oswald at the lineup.
There's no evidence of that. Okay, so listen, we're pivoting now. Let's get back to the jealous husband. Are there any other comments you have on that?
No, I mean, so why did the jealous husband happen to gun down Tippit on 10th Street? Do you have an opinion on that or what?
I'm not saying that that's what happened. That is a possibility. And again, we'll get into this as we go into my next topic. But the waitress, she got pregnant, and she told the HSCA that she and Tippit broke up in the summer, that they had already broken up. But actually, Larry Harris and Ken Holmes Jr., they interviewed the actual husband, and he said, no, that's not true at all. He stated matter of factly that their relationship, Tippit's and his wife's, did not end until that he and his wife did not get back together until the next day. She said, and he said that she came to him upset, crying, explained that she was pregnant by Tippit and that he took her to the funeral home and they viewed him. She said goodbye. And then they raised the child as if it was their own. And
are you saying this kid was Tippit's?
I will tell you that she has eyes exactly like JD Tippit. That's all I'll say.
JD Tippit had a vasectomy.
Yeah, I know. That's what was claimed later.
How's he going to have a kid if he had a vasectomy?
That is what was claimed later, but I'm not saying that.
So all these claims, everything's just claims, and you're doubting all of it instead of giving it any.
Very rare to have a vasectomy back then. Anyway, plus vasectomies don't always work. Again, this is a very touchy subject. I'm not accusing anyone of anything. This is just what was told by the woman and her husband. And the question quietly lingers: was Tippit killed by a jealous husband? He did not. He gave 2 conflicting alibis. They said, "Where were you?" He told Greg Lowry, Dallas researcher Greg Lowry, that he was at work when Kennedy and Tippit were killed, at work. But he told Larry Harris and Ken Holmes Jr. that he was on his way to work and he heard about all this on the news, on his car radio, on the news on the radio. So It's very sketchy about where he was. And there's a witness by the name of Jack Tatum who came up years later. And and he said that the killer put the gun to Tippit's head as he lay in the street and fired one more shot into him. That's not someone who's trying to escape like Oswald. That's someone who wants that person dead. That's personal. And the HSCA even commented on it. They said in their final report, page 60, quote, this action, which is often encountered in gangland murders and is commonly described as a coup de grace, is more indicative of an execution than an act of I'm stuttering. Okay, you can take this out, right, Chris? Than an act.
Yes,
Than an act of. Fuck. I'm sorry, Bill. Is more indicative of an execution than an act of self. Can't get the word out. Is more indicative of an execution than an act of defense intended to allow escape or prevent apprehension. So if he had, and again, we'll get more into Tippit's behavior in the next topic, but that coup de grace does not sound like someone who's trying to escape, as I just read. That could sound like someone who just realized that he got his wife pregnant. I'm just saying, it's a possibility.
The coup de grace, you talking about the final shot to the head?
Yep.
That didn't happen, though.
Yes. What do you mean it didn't happen?
Oswald did not go and fire a final shot to the head separate from the original outburst of shots.
That's what was claimed by Jack Tatum. It's
Yeah.
also
Only by Tatum. But listen, Jimmy Burt, Bill Smith, Benavides, Helen Markham.
I know.
William Scoggins, all of these guys, none of them, and Barbara Davis and Virginia Davis too, Ted Calloway, Sam Ginyard, all these ear witnesses, not one of them ever says there was one shot fired 20 seconds or 15 or 30, whatever, after the original outburst of shots. It didn't happen.
A guy named James Archer also says that there was a final shot to his head, that he shot him again.
Yeah.
The killer shot him again. So we have two instances of a coup de grace. If it is true, then that's absolutely significant.
But it's not true.
And you mentioned Scoggins, but at this point, Scoggins is hiding behind his cab. Helen Markham is on the ground covering her eyes. The Davis sisters are running to their front door inside their house. Jim Burt and Bill Smith are looking on.
Jimmy Burt and Bill Smith are standing right there looking at it.
Right there. They were a block away. But anyway,
exactly. They were right there looking, though. They weren't hiding their eyes or ducking behind their truck or anything like that.
And like I keep saying, it's very difficult that we can't get eyewitness accounts to match up. But anyway, yes, the question quietly lingers. Was Tippit killed by a jealous husband? And a few officers on the force did believe, they did feel that he was indeed killed because of this love triangle. It's a possibility. I'm not saying it's true. I'm saying to be honest, it seems too good to be true, but who knows?
But let me ask you a question. Why did it happen on 10th Street?
One more word. The waitress, she was asked by Joseph McBride, do you think your ex-husband could have done it? And she said, I personally don't think he did, but he could have. And he could have. And I don't know about it, but she conceded that he could have.
So why did it happen on 10th Street? Any opinion on that?
No, we only know what we know.
So 10th Street just happened to be where this jealous husband was walking, and Tippit decided to pull up and start talking to him?
Again, we only know what we know.
And what we know, Matt, is the guy that shot Tippit was walking on the sidewalk.
Yes, and they lived just a few minutes drive from where Tippit was killed, in the same neighborhood.
No, they did not. They lived. Shoot.
I just read it to you.
No, they lived like the 2500 block of South Tyler is where city records show that they lived.
No, as I just read from Henry Hurt's book, they lived a few minutes drive.
Henry Hurt's book is wrong.
Anyway, I'm not arguing that this
city records show that the waitress lived in the 2500 block of South Tyler at the time of the assassination, some 36 blocks from the scene of Tippit's death. And then Dale Myers conducted other interviews with former waitress to verify the address. At the time of the assassination, they lived some
Yeah.
36 blocks from the scene. So why is her husband out walking in front of 404 East 10th Street?
No, he writes it was 15 blocks. That's in his book.
You know what? It was
That's
actually more than
15 blocks
15. It was
away.
36 blocks. But even if it was 15,
Like I said, it's a couple minutes drive. If you're in a car, it's a couple minutes drive. But anyway, I'm not arguing that this
no.
is
See, you're
true.
backtracking now because you said that I asked you why would the jealous husband be walking on the sidewalk on 10th Street? And you said they lived in the neighborhood.
I said they lived a few minutes drive.
You said they lived in the neighborhood. That's an exact what
I did. Oh,
you did.
then I
Yes.
misspoke. Sorry,
Okay.
they lived a few minutes drive from it. But anyway,
I would say it's more than a few minutes. 36 blocks would take damn near 25 minutes probably.
again,
Right.
we're going to get into Tippett's actions in the next topic. But could he have been? Okay, we have to get to the next.
Okay, but hold on. Yeah, before we get to the next topic, I just want you to satisfy me here. Why would her husband be walking on 10th Street?
Again, the next topic will answer some of these questions.
Okay. All right, because I want you to answer that question.
What?
Then why her
We'll
husband
bring
would be
up-
walking
in the next
on the
topic,
side?
we'll bring up Tippett's actions, and I'll tell you.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and do that. Then we can do my last topic last if you want, which is the ballistics.
You can do yours now.
Okay.
Go for
Yeah.
it.
Rounded up with the ballistics.
Okay. So, well, basically, Oswald's revolver originally was designed to fire 38 Smith & Wesson bullets. 38 specials, they're smaller in diameter than regular 38s. Okay. The barrel was shortened to 2 inches. I think you guys know that. All 4 bullets taken from Tippett's body and the revolver, the barrel of the revolver, this is all through ballistic testing, had 5 lands and 5 grooves with a right twist. Even if they couldn't conclude that the bullets definitely came from that revolver, even though one expert did conclude that one bullet did come from that revolver, but setting that aside, the bullets had 5 lands and 5 grooves with a right twist, which is the same characteristics of the revolver's barrel. And also they fired test bullets out of that revolver for comparison purposes, and bullets from Tippett's body had similar scratches as did the test bullets. Bullets from Tippett's body had signs of gas erosion. Now, gas erosion is caused when propellant escapes between the surface of a bullet and the inside of the barrel. Now, this happens when the bullets that travel through the barrel are too small than the barrel itself. So this 38 special, being a smaller bullet in diameter than the 38, allowed this propellant to escape between the surface of the bullet and the inside of the barrel, because basically these bullets had the bullets had signs of gas erosion on them. Point being, the bullets line up a lot of the same characteristics with the revolver. Now, as far as the shells, when fired, a gun puts a distinct fingerprint on the shell. The shell casing is up against the breech face and the firing pin. Now, when the hammer makes contact with the primer, the bullet is fired and the shell is thrown back against the breech face. Okay. Now, when this happens, it places a distinct mark onto the base of the shell, marks that were on the breech face. Okay. So the marks on the breech face matching the marks on the shell prove that the shell casing was fired from that weapon, to the exclusion of every other weapon in the world. It's like a fingerprint. Now, Joseph Nickel, he was the superintendent of the Bureau of Criminal Identification and Investigation for the state of Illinois. And then Courtney Cunningham, Robert Frazier, and Charles Killian, these 3 guys worked in the Firearms Identification Unit of the FBI laboratory in Washington, D.C. All 4 of these men examined the shells found at the Tippit scene, and they, with comparison shells fired off from the revolver, and each expert, independent of each other, determined that the shells were linked through ballistics, to the exclusion of every other weapon in the world, to Oswald's revolver. So the ballistics, you could throw witnesses away. The ballistics prove that the revolver taken from Oswald in the Texas theater fired at least one bullet, if you listen to Nickel, and all 4 of the shells came from that revolver. I don't know. Matt's probably going to attack the ballistics by challenging the chain of evidence of the shells, but that's just going to be a bunch of nonsense. It doesn't change the fact that these shells were linked to the revolver to the exclusion of every other revolver in the world.
Yeah, I'll respond to all of this in my closing argument. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
So if you're going to respond to the chain of custody in your closing argument,
it'll be there. Yes.
Okay. Then let me just say real quick then that so 4 shells were found at the scene. If the Poe shells were shells 1 and 2 that he turned over to Gerald Hill, then the Barbara Davis shell is shell number 3, and the Virginia Davis shell is shell number 4. Yep. So shell number 3 was found by Barbara Davis around 2 p.m. and it was recovered by Captain George Doty of the crime lab. And Doty marked the shell and put it with the 2 Poe shells.
Yep.
The FBI came out and interviewed Doty in June of '64, and he positively identified Q76. The shells were labeled by the FBI Q74, Q75, Q76, and Q77. So Doty positively identified Q76. This is one of the shells found at the scene. It was the shell found by Barbara Davis, which he retrieved and marked, and he was shown all 4 of the shells. Bottom line is he identified his marking on that shell and said that was the shell that he took possession of at 10th and Patton. And then shell number 4 was found by Virginia Davis. And then once authorities had already left the scene, and Barbara Davis called the police that evening to report the shell that was found about 5 feet away from the shell she found.
Yep.
So when Detectives Brown and Doherty, they were dispatched to pick up that 4th shell. And this is also when they took the 2 girls to City Hall to view a lineup. And then Doherty gave the shell to J.C. Day. And Doherty, he identified Q75 as the shell given to him by Virginia Davis. So both shells were positively identified by the members of Dallas Police Department who handled them. There's no problem with the chain of custody of those 2 shells. I don't think there's a problem with the chain of custody of the Poe shells either, but I'm not willing to commit a hard enough argument to argue about the 2 Poe shells, about whether Poe marked them or whether he didn't. He told the Warren Commission that he can't be sure he even marked them. Okay. Matt's going to argue that there's a problem with the chain of custody of these shells, but I just told you that these shells were identified by the members of law enforcement who handled the shells.
Yeah, so I had planned for me to talk about all of that, for me to address all of that in my closing argument, which I'll do. But
okay. Do you agree though that Cortland Cunningham, Robert Frazier, Charles Killian, and Joseph Nickel, right or wrong, do you agree that they linked the 4 shell casings and evidence to Oswald's revolver?
No one denies that the shells and evidence nowadays links to the gun, to the pistol. No one denies that.
So you're going to argue some mysterious shell switching went on?
No. The only thing necessary to cover up this case was to switch the shells. But anyway, I'm going to talk. I had planned to address all of that in my closing argument. Our closing arguments are going to be 5 to 10 minutes. So anyway, next topic. The last topic, right?
Yes.
Yes, the last topic. And that goes to...
Was Tippit involved?
Yes.
Yeah, was Tippit involved? Now, I don't think I have, honestly, in all honesty, I have to agree and concur with Larry Harris and Greg Larry, 2 Dallas researchers who studied this case the most, and they both came to the same conclusion. They both came to the same conclusion that Tippit was not involved, and I have to agree with them. But of course, as with anything in this case, there are, lots of innuendos and stories. This is one of the oldest arguments. It's in the 26 volumes. Is that a few days just before the assassination, Lee Oswald was eating breakfast at the Dobbs House restaurant, and he was complaining to the waitress and made a scene about how they cooked his food wrong, and Officer Tippit was also in the restaurant that day. Now, I'm not saying this is true. I'm not saying it's false. It's just a story that's there, and we have to deal with it. Let's see. Also stuff that's in the 26 volumes. A guy named Andrew Armstrong. He was an employee of Jack Ruby's Carousel Club. He told agents of the FBI that he was with Ruby when Tippit's death was announced over the radio. And after learning that he had been killed, Armstrong said that Ruby said, I know that guy. Again, we were not sure what to do with this. It's very possible that he knew Ruby, but Tippit was not involved. Same thing with Larry Crawford. He was also there, and he heard Ruby say that he had known Tippit quite well. Ruby referred to the slain officer, according to him, by his first name or a nickname, and that he was definitely, quote, definitely referring to the Dallas, Texas Police Department officer who was shot that day. We have another guy named Jack Hardy Jr. He was an inmate. He confirmed Ruby's statement that he knew J.D. Tippit well. He said that J.D. Tippit was, quote, quite a frequent visitor to Ruby's clubs, along with other officers. He added that, and again, this is all laid out in Mark Lane's book, Rush to Judgment. I'm just summarizing this, and this stuff that I'm reading is right in the 26 volumes. Another FBI reports shows that there was a guy named Joey Gerard, Gerard, who worked for Ruby at the Carousel Club. He recalled that he, quote, recalled seeing Tippit at the club. He was shown. Let's see. Then we have Ruby's sister, Mrs. Grant. She said that, quote, Jack knew him, and I knew him. She said that J.D. Tippit used to come in, quote, into both the Vegas Club and the Carousel Club, and that Jack called him his buddy. And we also have a guy named George Arnett. Again, he said that he corroborated the fact that Ruby knew Tippit. He even suggested that Ruby may have been motivated in his shooting of Oswald because he had shot Tippit, who we knew. And then we have a guy named Harold Williams who said that he was arrested by Officer Tippit, and that Ruby was in the front seat of his car, just, riding along for fun. But he told that story to Mark Lane for their film Rush to Judgment. But I can dismiss that because he wanted, he said, I'll tell my story, but you have to pay me for it. So that he's kind of not reliable. But anyway, those are the accounts that are in the 26 volumes, and there's other stuff. So the question is, was Tippit involved? I don't think so. Could he have known Ruby? It's very possible. I would be surprised if he didn't. But those are just some of the stories that are there. And you can respond, Bill, if you want to.
I don't really have anything to say about any of that stuff. I don't think, I guess I haven't really understood how you're relating it to the murder of J.D. Tippit.
Well, the topic is, was Tippit involved? And so therefore we have to ask, did he know Ruby? Did he know Oswald? And so I'm telling you stories that are out there in the public in the 26 volumes that indicate, yeah, he might have. Again, I'm not saying he was, it could very well be true, but that doesn't mean he was involved in the plot, Officer Tippit.
Yeah, when you're talking about J.D. Tippit being involved, I don't really have anything to say about it.
And you go down to Dallas and you hear a whole bunch of stories. Me living in Dallas, I literally hear stories all the time about this case. I was in the library. I was at a library last month, and I ran into Sheriff Buddy Walters' second cousin, and he confirmed, oh yeah, he did find an extra bullet in the plaza. I was in a bookstore one time, and I ran into J.C. Day's one of his son-in-laws or something. He said, oh yeah, they did switch the rifle. I've run into people at places where
they're just conspiracy theories that they hear over the years. By the way, did you know that, for example, you're talking about all these sightings? Did you know that John Wilkes Booth, so he was killed in Port Royal, Virginia, okay? Do you know that there were reports of him being sighted in Texas and Tennessee and Georgia and Maryland and Kentucky and all that stuff, but we knew he was in Virginia. It happens.
So as I was trying to say before I was interrupted, you hear a lot of stories down here in Dallas, and they could be true, they could not be true. I personally do not think Tippit was involved, but these stories could be true.
So if you don't think Tippit was involved, then that's good enough for me. I don't have anything to say.
Yeah, I just want to go down the list a little bit about some other stuff that you can hear from Dallas. I'm going to read you this. This is by Bill Pulte, Dallas researcher. Quote, an undercover narcotics officer working for Sheriff Bill Decker was probably hired in part because he played in Ruby's club since 1948, as well as others. He was a musician in Ruby's clubs, and Ruby often visited him. The undercover operative often heard Tippit's name mentioned by Ruby. So again, like I said, it's possible he knew Ruby, but let's see. The Pig and Whistle restaurant. A guy named Earl Crater of the Pig and Whistle restaurant said that Lee Harvey Oswald, Jack Ruby, and J.D. Tippit had eaten breakfast at his restaurant on a number of occasions at 7 a.m. He said that Oswald never had more than a cup of coffee. Now, that's pretty interesting because that goes with what his wife said about how he never had more than a cup of coffee for breakfast. So again, not sure what to do with this information.
Laugh at it. Call it what it is. Bullshit.
No. You don't get to do that. You don't get to do that. These are accounts that are out there. I don't know what to do with it either.
There are accounts that were out there that John Wilkes Booth was seen in Tennessee.
We're talking about Kennedy.
It's a point, though. I'm making a point.
And going to Dallas and talking to people, hands on. You're going to find the truth in Dallas because that's where it happened, Bill. You're not going to find it up in.
You can find the truth in the National Archives in College Park, Maryland, too.
You're going to find the truth in Dallas because that's where it happened. You're not going to find it in Michigan or wherever. So you go. You go down.
I know a couple of guys in Michigan who have done some pretty great research.
You go down to Dallas. You interview people who were there, and you get these stories, and then you have to analyze them, see where they fit. If they don't fit, they don't fit. But anyway, yeah.
Yeah, I'm confused, Matt. Are you arguing that Tippit was involved or he wasn't involved?
No, I don't think he was involved. But I'm telling you.
Then what are we doing here?
I'm telling you accounts that are out there that I'm not sure what to do with.
Okay. Well, I don't know what to do with that information.
Me neither. That's why I'm saying it.
Okay? I don't know what to do with the information of you just telling me that there are accounts out there. So it doesn't mean anything to me. It's laughable. It's ridiculous. And
you can't just wipe it away as nothing just because you feel like.
I don't wipe anything away as nothing, but I need evidence to look at something. And there's no evidence at all that J.D. Tippit was involved.
I know. I agree. But okay. I'm telling you story. I'm just telling you what's out there.
So if you agree, then are we ready for the closing arguments, or you still got more to say then?
Okay. Let's go on. Verda May Harrell was Johnny Maxie Witherspoon's mother. She worked at a cafe off Beckley Street at the Clifton Towers coffee shop on Davis Avenue at Ballard. Okay? And saw Tippit and Oswald at breakfast there. Oswald came in for dinner at 5 p.m. every day after work, having a hamburger platter. He always sat alone in the same isolated alcove. Okay? Oswald never talked to anyone except Verda May and always left her a 25-cent tip at this establishment. Verda May, she said he was a good customer, though they never actually conversed. Verda May, she knew J.D. Tippit very well and used to spend a lot of time with him at Austin's Barbecue, where they talked about children. She had 10 children herself. Okay, so again, we're not sure not quite sure with what to do with this information, but that's just what's out there. And that also comes from Dallas researcher Mr. Bill Pulte. Okay.
Okay.
And They were, let's see, Tippett's actions that day were very panicky. We're not sure what he was doing. First of all, he told his son that morning, son, he hugged his son that morning, his oldest son, Alan, who since passed away. He told his son, no matter what happens, just know I love you, okay? Now, people automatically jump at that. Oh my gosh, that means he's involved in the plot. But no, again, he wanted a divorce from his wife. He was head over heels for this woman. He was for this waitress. He proposed to her, and he was willing to leave his wife and marry her. So that could very well account for him telling his son that day. No matter
Where does that? Yeah, and that never happened. That conversation, if you want to call it that, never took place between Tippit and his son. That never happened. That's a myth.
I can confirm you it did. I can confirm to you it did.
How?
Because I have a source who was I know a source. I have a source who was Tippit's best friend, who confirms that story was true, and that information will come out later. Okay, but that's a different place for a different time. I'm telling you what happened.
That conversation never took place, Matt.
Okay, well, you can say that, but that doesn't make it true. And the neighbor that morning saw Mrs. Tippit crying, and she said, "What's wrong?" She said that Mrs. Tippit told her that her husband, that JD was leaving her, wanted a divorce. So that could account for some of Tippit's panicky behavior. Now, what panicky behavior did he have? He was seen just after the assassination. He was seen at the end of the viaduct at a gas station in his car, waiting as if for someone to cross the viaduct. He was seen by 5 people, and then he sped off at a high rate of speed. No one knows what that was about, And then, of course, he ran into the Top 10 record store to try and make a phone call. And he got impatient, slammed the phone down, and ran out. And he was killed minutes later. No one knows what that was about. Who's he trying to reach? Why is he in a hurry? And then he cut off a car driven by an insurance guy, James Andrews, and he stopped him, looked in his car, and then sped away. And he was killed literally a few minutes later. So all this stuff, this odd, panicky behavior of Tippit is a big question. And again, that could possibly account for this love triangle that we mentioned earlier.
And there's so many coulds.
Yes.
First of all, Dub Stark and Luis Cortines, these were the 2 guys that were inside the Top 10 record store. They didn't even tell this story about Tippit stopping in there and making this supposed mysterious phone call until 1981. And I guarantee you that in an area the size of Oak Cliff, J.D. Tippit, his name was more legendary from 1963 onward than was John Kennedy's. J.D. Tippit's name is probably legendary in Oak Cliff. I can't guarantee it, but it's my opinion that J.D. Tippit's name is pretty legendary in Oak Cliff. Why did Dub Stark and Luis Cortines not tell anybody until approached for an interview in 1981? Why did they wait 18 years to tell the story? And James Andrews, he didn't tell his story until 1991 when they were talking about the whole Roscoe White fiasco. And he says, "Oh, by the way, let me tell you about this fella." So this whole James Andrews story, if I recall correctly, and I'm just going by memory here, he says that Tippit passed him, pulled over in front of him, and stopped him. Tippit gets out and goes running and looks in the back of James Andrews' car, and then didn't see anything and continued back up to his car and took off.
Yep.
And James Andrews, I think, said that he even recognized the nameplate. If a police officer runs at you like a bat out of hell, like this whole scenario that James Andrews describes, are you going to look at his damn nameplate? The whole thing is nonsense. It's nonsense. And why did he wait 28 years to tell the story?
Why are you yelling, bro?
Well, tell me why James Andrews waited 28 years to tell the story.
So, like I always, okay, you have to ask him. But anyway, look, this is the thing. You go down to Dallas and you talk with people. You do hands-on research, and you find people who were never interviewed by the Warren Commission.
You also find people who decide to make up stories.
Make up stories. You don't know that.
28 years later.
No, you don't know that.
And why did Dub Stark and Luis Cortines at the Top 10 wait 18 years? And by the way, Luis Cortines, he doesn't just stop with Tippit coming in and making a mysterious phone call, getting no answer, and speeding back off again. No, Cortinas, he places himself at the Texas Theater and sees the arrest. He places himself here. He places himself there. He's got a sensational story of
Do you
everything
not know
he
that the
saw that
Texas
day.
Theater is right down the street? Okay,
I'm
30
aware of that.
from the record store. Do you not know that?
I'm totally aware of that.
I guess you don't because you don't live in Dallas. But anyway,
That doesn't make any sense. I've been to the top 10 record store and the Texas Theater before you were born, quite honestly.
okay, that's fine. So anyway, yeah, these are. It really makes you wonder what was Tippit, and Tippit was out of his district too. He was ordered to go to the Central Oak Cliff. He's not in Central Oak Cliff. So what the hell's he doing running around trying to make phone calls? He's panicky. It looks like
He's not running around trying to make phone calls.
Yes.
Why did Dub Stark and Luis Cortinas not tell the story until 1981? Why did James Andrews not tell the story until 1991?
I'm sure there are many witnesses you believe who came out years later that you believe.
No, I do not believe Jack Tatum. I do not. I told you earlier, I don't believe that final shot, that coup de grace shot to the head occurred. I'm not believing Jack Tatum.
So like I said, just because they weren't called to testify before the Warren Commission or anything like that, does not mean that their stories are invalid or bunk. Okay. Again,
I've never said that just because they didn't testify because the story was invalid. But why did they wait 18 years and 28 years?
You're going to find the truth if you come here to Dallas and talk to people hands-on. That's what these people did, these Dallas researchers, and I'm proud to be from Dallas, okay?
Hey, Matt, can you say 3 words for me? 28 years.
Okay. Yeah, we know that. So what?
If this story really happened, he would have told the story long before 1991. I'm pretty sure James Andrews told the story for the first time in 1991. And how does put yourself in put yourself in James Andrews' shoes. You're in your car. A police officer passes you and pulls over in front of you. The police officer jumps out, runs back right directly at you, looks in the back seat, probably scares the hell out of you, and then the police officer takes off. Why are you going to notice the name? Why are you going to notice the nameplate saying Tippit?
There was an account of a woman who accidentally rear-ended Tippit's car minutes before he shot.
She was worried he was going to be pissed because she hit him.
Yeah. So again, why all this panicky behavior by Tippit? A lot of people. Listen.
Apparently you don't, and that's fine. Actually, it's good that you don't. But I know people who will insert themselves into folklore for their 15 minutes of fame. People do it.
That's not an argument. Listen, I just lost my train of thought.
Well, what you're saying is not an argument. You're talking about stories people tell after the fact. That's not an argument. That's not an argument.
No, just because this is what people reported. Okay, you go down to Dallas, and this is what they'll tell you.
They reported it.
You're not letting me finish. Just because they're not meant.
We're having a back and forth, and you're talking about.
Darn right we are.
You're talking about folklore and fantasy.
Not folklore.
You're not debating the tip case.
It's not folklore and fantasy, Bill. This is what they reported.
They reported folklore and fantasy.
How do you know that? You don't know that. You're just making that up because you don't agree with it.
Why did they wait 28 years? Why did Andrews wait 28 years? Why did Stark and Cortinas wait 18 years?
There are lots of witnesses. I found many witnesses in my research who were never called before.
Yeah, and who did they tell you the killer was?
No, I'm not talking about Tippit. Actually, one I found. But
let me ask you a question then. So the guy you found last
year. No, we're talking about.
You found him on an Oak Cliff Facebook. But who did he tell you the killer was?
Listen, we're not talking about that. We're talking.
Yeah, you don't want to answer the question because he told you it was Oswald.
Okay, I can't get a word in.
Well, Matt, he told you it was Oswald.
Okay, listen. We're talking about Tippit's actions. A lot of people take all of his panicky actions and his strange actions as what I just described. A lot of scholars take that he was involved, but to me, it could mean, again, I don't think Tippit's involved, but it could point to something else. Maybe he's trying to arrange a meeting with his mistress or the husband or both. Or who knows? We're not so sure about that. All I can tell you,
the husband who was walking on the sidewalk 36 blocks from where he lives.
Let me finish. All we know is what people reported. Okay.
Well, we know a lot more than that. All you know is what people reported.
Okay. Again, so this goes against Bill's predetermined conclusion that it
No,
was.
it's not it is definitely not predetermined. That's
Yeah.
for sure. You're just late to the party.
Late to the party. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? Okay. So, yes. So I just laid out for you. Overall, I don't think Tippit was involved, but his actions. But we don't know exactly what he was up to. He was panicky. He was rushing around trying to make phone calls, doing
No,
all this. Yes, he was.
No,
Yes,
he
he was.
Nope, was not.
How do you know that? You weren't there.
How do you know it? How do you know he was?
What people
Because they told you so, and you believe it automatically.
This is what people
People lie to insert themselves into stories for attention.
That doesn't mean that this is the case here. All I'm reporting is what people reported. And everyone knows the top 10 record top 10 record story. You guys can look it up. These people are credible. Okay. Maybe if it was just
how the hell was Dub Stark and Luis Cortines credible?
Maybe it was just, let's say if it was just one person, then yeah, maybe. But we have multiple people who saw.
You have multiple people making
excuse
shit
me.
up.
Let me finish.
Well, hold on. No, hold on a second. James Andrews does not confirm Dub Stark and Luis Cortines.
If it was one person who said Tippit was acting suspiciously after the assassination, then maybe they're, trying to mix them up. But we have all these people I mentioned who are saying Tippit's acting panicky, suspicious. I don't think he's involved, but really, we need to find out. I wish we knew what he was up to. I don't think he was involved.
He wasn't up to anything. He was just patrolling the district he was sent to.
He was not in Central Oak Cliff. He was ordered to Central Oak Cliff. He wasn't in Central Oak Cliff. But anyway.
Jefferson Boulevard is pretty Central Oak Cliff.
Okay. So, anything else?
No, I just I feel like I've just been through an episode of Game of Thrones. All this fantasy.
Game of Thrones. That's what people reported. Everyone knows the top 10 records story. Everyone knows James. Everyone knows these topics. I know you don't like them.
That's because of Bill Drenus' article. It doesn't mean it's true.
I believe it's not just in Bill Drenus' article.
Final arguments.
All right. Well, basically, in a nutshell, as far as final arguments go, okay. Oswald, I've already shown you guys that Oswald was able to leave the depository and be in and out of the rooming house by 1 o'clock. He arrives there at 12:57, 12:58, maybe 12:59. He's back there just long enough to grab a jacket, and he's gone. The witnesses at the scene positively identify Oswald, and that would be Helen Markham, William Scoggins, Barbara Davis, Virginia Davis, Sam Ginyard, Ted Calloway, the Johnny Reynolds Motor Company guys, Harold Russell, Pat Patterson, Warren Reynolds, and also Mary Brock. She has him walking behind the Texaco station 1 block away with a jacket on, where a jacket was later found under a car. So the witnesses at the scene positively identify Lee Oswald. The shells found at the scene are linked to the exclusion of any other revolver in the world to the revolver that Oswald had in his possession when he was arrested. The big one for me is, why did Oswald get rid of his jacket between the rooming house and the shoe store? If Oswald did not even go to 10th and Patton, and if he never went behind the Texaco station, forget 10th and Patton, forget the murder of Tippit, forget the jacket found under the car on the ground behind the Texaco station, why did Oswald ditch the jacket that he was seen zipping up as he went out the door of the rooming house by the time he was seen by Johnny Brewer on Jefferson Boulevard? And something else I wanted to say. So, Matt has made arguments like, oh my gosh, like a jealous husband walking on a sidewalk in the neighborhood he lived in. No, this is my closing argument. You gotta let me go. So Matt was making an argument about a jealous husband, possibly a jealous husband walking on a sidewalk. Matt says, because he lived in the neighborhood, but truth be known, it was 36 blocks away. And then Matt even later said it was 15 blocks away. Either way, it's not in the neighborhood. Why would a jealous husband be walking on a sidewalk? It's pointless. And all these arguments by Matt have been on the same lines. Bob Barrett, Matt insisted that Bob Barrett never went to Westbrook's office, and there's no evidence of it, and that I was going to embarrass myself by saying such a thing. And I showed Matt where Bob Barrett specifically stated in 1975 that he went to Westbrook's office to assist with the arrest report. All right. This is pretty early on because the arrest report was not typed up yet. So, and one important thing I do want to mention, I didn't get to this earlier. So, Robert Oswald told a story. He and Lee, now this is when Lee was back from Russia. And this is about a year before the assassination. So, sometime like in late '62, he and Lee are driving. Robert's driving, Lee's in the passenger seat. Robert has a yellow light up ahead of him, and he decides to go ahead and run through the yellow light. Well, the light turned red before he could pass through. So a police officer saw this, pulled him over for running a red light. The officer walks up, talks to Robert Oswald, and Robert Oswald said, well, the guy behind me, if I would have stopped at this yellow light, the guy behind me would have hit me. So I figured it best to go ahead and go through the intersection. This didn't matter to the police officer, and he gave Robert Oswald a citation for running a red light. Well, Robert Oswald said that as they were pulling away after he got his ticket, the police officer walked back to his patrol car. Robert Oswald said as they were pulling away, he said that Lee looked over his shoulder and kind of mumbled to himself, "Dumb cop." Now, that doesn't prove anything, but I think it's important, and I think it's important because William Scoggins was sitting in his cab at the corner of 10th and Patton eating his lunch. He heard the shots. He gets out of his cab. The gunman is running straight towards him because he's right there at the corner. He tries to cross the street, look for a place to hide, couldn't find a place to hide, and figured his best bet was to go back to the cab. So he's ducking behind the cab, looking over the back trunk as Oswald cuts the corner and starts to go south on Patton. Scoggins identified the man as Oswald, and he said that Oswald mumbled to himself, "Poor damn cop," or "Poor dumb cop." Scoggins wasn't sure which statement that Oswald said, but it was either "poor damn cop" or "poor dumb cop." And Scoggins said that Oswald uttered it twice. Okay. So again, this doesn't prove that Oswald is a cop killer, but I think it's important to note that this whole "dumb cop" comment that Robert Oswald said Lee made, almost an entire year before. The bottom line is the J.D. Tippit was murdered on November 22nd, 1963 at about 1:15. The witnesses tell you it was Oswald. The ballistics tell you it was Oswald. And why did Oswald get rid of his jacket? If he wasn't trying to change his appearance because he just killed a cop, why is he getting rid of his jacket between the rooming house and the shoe store? I go with the evidence. Matt wants to talk about could've, would'ves, and should'ves and all that stuff. I'm just talking about the evidence. Matt, if you listen to this debate, is not talking about the physical evidence at all. And why isn't he? Because, and Matt's going to have his closing argument here in just a second. If Matt wants to add one more thing, I would love to hear in his closing argument one piece of physical evidence that points somewhere besides Oswald. I would love to know what this one piece would be, because there's not one piece of physical evidence that I've ever seen in the murder of J.D. Tippit or the assassination of the president that points to anybody besides Lee Harvey Oswald. Not one single piece of physical evidence. And I challenge Matt to list one piece of physical evidence that points to someone besides Lee Harvey Oswald when Matt makes his closing arguments, which I'm finished now.
Matt?
You done? Okay. So just to respond really quickly, just before I give my closing argument, he said, again, if you go back and listen, we already talked about the jacket and Johnny Brewer, and we already exhausted that. So he brought that up. I don't have an answer. I gave an answer. He said, I say could, would, should have. No, I only say could, would, should have on things we don't know. Like, why was Tippit acting panicky and all that. Everything else I cited as original evidence. He said he basically said I fell on my face, basically, because the whole Bob Barrett thing and Westbrook and all this. So turns out you read me something I did not know before about when he testified, Bob Barrett. So it turns out I'm not right. And guess what? Bill's not right. So now we have a split. Bill's quote of Bob Barrett is saying that he went to Westbrook's office. And then my quote and then the second quote, and a different quote, is Bob Barrett saying, I never talked with him except for the Tippit scene. So what we have is a split. So I know it kind of made me sound bad earlier, but what we have is a split. We don't know which one's true. You said you accused me of not talking about the physical evidence. All right, well, that's because we already had a debate last year where we did talk about the physical evidence. So nice try. It doesn't work. You said point to one piece of evidence that shows other than Oswald. I'll get to that in my closing argument. I think you already know what it is. Oh, you brought up Robert Oswald. I find it very sad how just 3 days after the assassination, Robert Oswald is already convinced that he's already bashing his kid brother before any facts have come out. I mean, he says this is CD 87, page 171. This is an interview. He said, I have no doubt in my mind that the death of the officer was done by my brother and all that stuff. So nope. This just a few days after the assassination, just 3 days, and he's already bashing his brother. Well, he was very jealous of his brother, and we all know that. And so why he would, be bashing him and trying to bring him down just 3 days before any facts have come out is insane. But anyway, let's see. I think that's all I want to respond to there. Okay. Here's my closing argument. Okay. Closing argument. Okay. So, in short, to sum up everything up as simple as I can, according to the Warner Report, Oswald left his house at 1:04, walked east 12 minutes, 1 mile, and killed Tippit at 1:16. But they left out Mrs. Roberts saying she saw him at the bus stop, quote, several minutes after he left. They also left out that 1:16 is actually when the police were notified and that the shooting really happened a few minutes before that. Not only that, all the witnesses said the man was actually walking west 16 minutes, not east, which, as I said, would have been 12 minutes. So if we adjust everything, Oswald is seen at the bus stop at 1:06, and Tippit is killed at 1:14. 8 minutes to walk 1 mile? No way. By the time Oswald gets there, 1:22, Tippit is already at the hospital. Okay, the police report says they only had one bullet. It was tested and didn't match to Oswald's revolver. The shells didn't appear for 6 days, and the remaining 3 bullets, a quarter of a year. The shells could not be matched with the bullets. The bullets could not be linked with the revolver. Officer Poe affirmed he marked the first 2 shells. His initials disappeared. Sergeant Barnes testified he marked the first 2 shells. His initials disappeared. The FBI belatedly claimed that Captain George Doty marked the 3rd shell. A cursive capital G is in fact on the shell today, but the problem is we don't know when he allegedly marked it. Who knows? He may have marked it later. We just don't know. It's all just a bunch of hearsay. Moving on, Detective Brown testified he and Detective Doherty marked the 4th shell. Their initials disappeared, and the shells could not be identified by the 3 witnesses as the ones they found that day. You can't make this up, folks. It's super obvious. The shells were switched. Who ID'd Oswald? William Lawrence Smith? Yes. Kenneth? No. Austin? No. Frank Wright? No. Bert? No. I'm stuttering. You can cut this out, Chris. Bert? No. I'm stuttering. You can take this out, right, Chris?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, you're fine, man.
Okay. Bert? No. I can't get the word out. I can't get the word out. I'm sorry, guys. I can't get the word out.
It's all right. Take your time.
William Arthur Smith? No. Higgins? No. Donnie Benavides? No. Fuck, I knew I'd get stuck on this one. You have no idea how hard it is not being able to get a word out, guys. Benavides? No. Barbara Davis? Yes. I'm so embarrassed. I'm sorry, guys. Fuck. Bill, you there?
Yeah.
I'm so embarrassing. I'm
Sorry. Just relax. No biggie.
okay. Oh, fuck. I can't get the fucking word out. Donnie Benavides? No. Barbara Davis? Yes. Oh my God. Virginia Davis? Yes. Scoggins? No. Markham? No. Mrs. Clemens? No. Sam Ginyard? Yes. Callaway? Yes. Reynolds? No. Russell? Yes. Patterson? Yes. Lewis? No. Robert Brock? No. Mary Brock? Yes. So that's 13 no's and 8 yeses. But those yeses were based on rigged lineups and showing Oswald's photo months after he was dead and nationally known. So actually, there's no one who can legitimately say it was Oswald. Here's a paradox. Here's a paradox. He left his house wearing a dark jacket. The killer wore a light jacket. A white jacket was found, yet what's in evidence is a gray jacket. Hey, that's JFK for you. And finally, you asked for a piece of evidence that points away from Oswald. Finally, the killer put his hands on Tippett's car. Fingerprints were lifted, and they did not match Oswald. Bill's whole argument is Oswald killed Tippit, the witnesses ID'd him, and the shells match his gun. To which I simply say, you mean the unfair lineups and the shells that didn't appear for 6 days? I mean, that's the quickest way I can sum it all up. In closing, as Larry Harris said a few years before he died, quote, I, Larry Harris, think that anyone who studies the evidence objectively and in its entirety will come away disturbed by what they find, because there's a lot of indications that Oswald was not the Tippit killer, that he was nowhere near there. In closing, it's unfortunate that the Tippit murder has been virtually regulated to footnote status in history. Because the Tippit murder, at that time and even now, is depicted as virtually an open and shut case against Oswald. But I think if you'll read up and slowly study the record, you'll find that the Warren Commission's findings leave a lot to be desired, and that there's a lot about the Tippit murder we don't know. It seems at this late date we may never be able to resolve the Tippit murder. It seems, at this point at least, that it seems destined to remain the other unsolved murder on November 22nd.
Gentlemen, thank you very much for coming on. I enjoyed
Chris, before we say our goodbyes, and this is nothing, no more debating. I just want to say that everybody out there listening, if you're not a member, and I'm sure Matt wants to mention his as well, and he should, but anybody out there listening, if you're not a member of JFK Truth Be Told, which is our Facebook group, we discuss the Kennedy assassination and the J.D. Tippit murder, then simply find the group on Facebook and send a request, and you'll be accepted. JFK Truth Be Told. And the second thing I want to say is if anybody out there is listening, I'm guessing here we're about almost 5 hours in, and if you've listened to this entire thing, then you definitely should go read With Malice by Dale Myers, because if you're interested enough in the Tippit case that you've listened this far and you've never read With Malice, then it's highly recommended. Any reasonable person, and that's the key word there, any reasonable person who reads With Malice is left to conclude that Oswald and Oswald alone murdered J.D. Tippit. It's the best book on the case, hands down. Nothing else compares. Highly recommended. And if you've listened to our debate today this long, you got to go check out With Malice.
Matt, would you like to mention your group?
Wow. No, I said what I need to say. I'm not going to make any promotions or anything. I'm done.
All right, fellas. Thank y'all very much. I enjoyed it.
Thanks, Chris.